2 years had passed since Captain Kang Wu spoke his first words in the Galactic Council chamber. The Great Hall looked different now. Human engineers had rebuilt it to be a perfect circle instead of the old design that put some species higher than others. Every seat was at the same level. Every voice carried the same distance. Every species had equal space. Admiral Kang Wu sat at the head of the circular chamber, but not as a conqueror. The assembled aliens and humans had voted him to be the first leader of the new galactic coalition. His uniform was different now, too. Instead of pure human military colors, it carried symbols from every species that had joined the alliance. The Vorthon delegation sat nearby. Their purple skin had returned to its normal color now that human food shipments kept them fed, but they looked different than before. Their 6 arms no longer gestured with arrogance. Instead, they moved carefully, respectfully. Former Prime Minister Dal Hun bowed his head when he spoke, acknowledging that his species had learned the price of calling others primitive. The crystal beings had rebuilt their cities with human help, but the new structures were different. They combined crystal harmony with human engineering, creating buildings that were both beautiful and practical. Elder Harmony speaker Tai Hoon had become the chief architect of the new crystal cities, working alongside human designers to create something neither species could have built. Alone, Captain Lim Da sat with the crystal delegation. Now her role had changed from secret saboteur to open partner. The same hands that had once planted microscopic flaws in crystal structures now helped design buildings that would last for millions of years. The crystal beings had forgiven her deception because they understood she had been fighting for her species' survival. The Sethrian tunnels were no longer underwater. Commander Park so had worked with Sethrian engineers to create the most advanced underground cities in galactic history. The new tunnel systems combined Sethrian digging expertise with human water management, creating subterranean civilizations that could survive any surface disaster. Colony leader Haiwan had become one of humanity's strongest supporters. He told other species about the day he watched his people drowning in their own tunnels, while human rescue workers risked their lives to save Sethrian children. The humans could have let his species die, but instead, they chose to help rebuild something better. The bird people had learned to love their new ground cities. Captain Moonjaw had worked with them to create structures that reached toward the sky while staying firmly planted on solid ground. The new cities used anti-gravity, technology that the bird people shared, combined with human construction methods that could withstand any storm-flying leader. June 6 spoke often about the change in his people. They had once thought that living on the ground was beneath them. Now they understood that every environment had its own beauty and challenges. His species had gained something they never knew. They were missing the ability to appreciate different ways of life. The Zephyrian Collective had solved their hive mind virus with human help, but they had chosen to change how their shared consciousness worked. Commander Yang Su had helped them create a new type of connection that allowed individual thought while maintaining group coordination. The Zephyrians were now stronger than ever, because they could think as one or as many depending on what the situation required. Collective voice Min Jung credited humans with saving her species from destruction. The virus that had torn them apart had actually revealed a dangerous weakness in their old hive mind system. The new system was immune to similar attacks because it was designed with human cybersecurity principles. The smaller species had learned their lessons too. The Trader Consortium now worked as part of the galactic economy instead of trying to control it. They discovered that fair trade made everyone richer than monopolies ever could. Mining Guild leader Park Dal had rebuilt his organization as a cooperative where every species shared profits and decisions equally. But the most important change was not in any individual species. It was in how they all thought about each other. The old Galactic Council had been based on the idea that some species were naturally superior to others. The new coalition was built on the principle that every species had something valuable to contribute. Human scientists worked with crystal beings to develop new materials. Vorthon engineers combined their multiple arms with human creativity to build incredible machines. Sethrian tunnel expertise merged with human mining technology to extract resources from impossible locations. Bird people air travel knowledge mixed with human logistics to create the fastest shipping network in galactic history. Ambassador Shitai Park. So stood to address the assembly. She had replaced the human diplomats who had tried so hard to make the old system work. Her job was easier because she did not have to convince anyone that humans deserved respect. The war had already settled that question permanently. We gather today to celebrate something that has never existed before. She said, a galaxy where no species is considered primitive, where no world is dismissed as worthless, where no people are seen as less than others. We have learned that strength comes not from domination but from cooperation. The assembly erupted in sounds of approval. Forthon foot-stomping crystal harmonics, Sethrian hissing birdsong, and human applause all blended together in a symphony of agreement. It was a sound that had never been heard before because the species making it had never truly been equals before. Elder Moon Ja of the Harmony Singers sat in a place of honor near the front. Her people had been right to warn against underestimating humans, but more importantly, they had been right to believe that different species could work together. Her peaceful philosophy had become the foundation of the new galactic government. The memorial wall behind the speaker's platform told the whole story carved in stone from every member world. It listed the names of humans who had died defending their colonies from alien attacks. It also listed the names of aliens who had died during the war that followed. But most importantly, it listed the names of beings from all species who had worked to build something better. The inscription at the bottom was simple but powerful, written in every language of every member species. It said, strength through unity, wisdom through humility. Never again will we judge others by their appearance or dismiss them for being different. Admiral Kang Wu looked around the chamber at representatives from dozens of species working together on problems that affected everyone. Climate control for worlds with mixed populations, resource sharing between species with different needs, defense planning that protected everyone equally, cultural exchange programs that let every species learn from all the others. The galaxy had learned what humans called the underdog principle. Never assume that someone is weak just because they seem different. Never believe that primitive means powerless. Never think that quiet means afraid. The most dangerous enemies are often the ones you never see coming. Captain Kang Wu had spoken once after 3 years of silence. His words had started a war that changed everything, but the war had not been the real victory. The real victory was what came after, when former enemies became partners, and the galaxy learned to see strength in diversity instead of superiority and sameness. The old galaxy had been ruled by fear and domination. The new galaxy was built on respect and cooperation. It was not perfect, and there were still problems to solve, but for the first time in galactic history, every species had an equal voice in solving them. The lesson carved into every government building on every world was clear. Underestimate others at your own peril, but more importantly, never let others feel like they have nothing left to lose. Because sometimes the quiet ones who never speak are the ones who have been listening and learning and preparing for the day when silence finally ends. The great crystal hall of the Galactic Council stretched higher than any building on Earth. Its walls sparkled with lights from 47 different worlds. Each light represented a species that had joined together to make rules for the entire galaxy today. They were all here for one purpose: to decide what to do with humanity. Ambassador Hyun Woo stood alone at the center of the hall. His black suit looked simple compared to the strange clothes and bodies of the alien delegates around him. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had scales that changed colors when they talked. A few looked like walking trees with eyes that glowed in the dark. But all of them were staring at him with the same expression. They wanted him gone. The trial had been going on for 3 days. The aliens had listed every complaint they had about humans. They said humans were too violent, too stubborn, and too dangerous. They said humans asked too many questions and never followed the rules properly. They said humans were spreading too fast across the galaxy and taking resources that belonged to older species. The Zephyrian delegate raised her long purple tentacles to speak. She was the one who had started this whole trial. Her species had been in space for thousands of years before humans even invented the wheel. She thought this gave her the right to judge humanity. Your species has been found guilty of breaking galactic law, she announced in her strange singing voice. You expand without permission. You fight instead of talking. You refuse to follow the ancient ways that have kept peace in our galaxy for centuries. Hyun-woo said nothing. He had already given his defense speech yesterday. He had explained that humans were still young, and learning he had promised that Earth would try harder to follow galactic rules. But he could see in their alien eyes that they had already made up their minds before the trial even started. The voting began. Each species had one vote. The results appeared on a giant screen above the hall in letters that glowed bright blue. The Altarians voted to exile humanity. The Centauri Federation voted to exile humanity. The Vegan Confederation voted to exile humanity. One by one, the votes came in 40. 5 species voted to send humanity away from galactic civilization forever. Only 2 species chose not to vote at all. Nobody voted to let humanity stay. The Zephyrian delegate smiled with her strange mouth that had too many teeth. The vote is final. She declared Earth and all human colonies must be cut off from galactic society. You have 30 galactic cycles to remove all human presence from our space. After that, any human ship found in galactic territory will be destroyed. Hyun-woo nodded. Slowly, he had expected this result, but hearing it still felt like a punch to the stomach. The aliens were throwing humanity out of the galaxy like unwanted guests. They were cutting off all trade, all communication, all technology sharing, everything that had helped humanity grow and learn about the universe. As he walked out of the crystal hall, Hyun-woo could hear the alien delegates celebrating behind him. They thought they had solved their human problem. They thought cutting off Earth would make humanity weak and desperate. They thought humans would come crawling back in a few years begging to be let back in. But they were wrong about one very important thing. Hyun-woo touched the small device hidden in his jacket pocket. It looked like a simple communicator, but it was actually something much more powerful. With one press of a button, he could send a message that would reach every human in the galaxy within hours. The message would be just 2 words. The words that would change everything. He walked to his small ship in the docking bay and sat down in the pilot's seat. The ship was nothing special compared to the huge vessels the aliens used. It was just a basic transport that could barely travel between star systems. But, like everything else about humanity, it was more than it seemed. Hyun-woo pressed the button. The message went out instantly to every human colony, every human ship, every human research station scattered across the galaxy. It traveled through secret communication networks that the aliens had never discovered. It reached places the aliens didn't even know humans had been on Earth. President Mina was sitting in a meeting room deep underground when she received the message she had been expecting. For weeks, the vote had been a foregone conclusion. Everyone knew the aliens would choose exile. The only question was whether humanity was ready for what came next. She stood up and walked to a wall covered with screens. Each screen showed a different part of the galaxy. Human colonies on distant worlds. Human ships traveling through space. Human research stations studying alien technology. All of them were waiting for her orders. Mina pressed her hand against a scanner. The screens changed. Now they showed something the aliens had never seen. Hidden shipyards that had been building in secret for decades. Underground bases that had been preparing for this moment. Weapons and ships that were far more advanced than anything the aliens thought humans could build. The truth was that humanity had been planning for exile for over 50 years. They had known this day would come. The aliens were too proud and too set in their old ways to ever truly accept humans as equals. So Earth had prepared for independence. Dr. Taiho was the head of the Deep Space Initiative, a project so secret that most humans didn't know it existed. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. When the exile message reached him, he smiled and activated protocols that had been waiting for decades. Across the galaxy, human sleeper agents received their activation codes. These were humans who had been living normal lives on alien worlds for years, working as teachers, mechanics, engineers, and scientists. But they were also trained operatives who had been gathering intelligence and resources for Earth. The aliens thought they were exiling a species that depended on them for everything. They thought humans were too primitive to survive without galactic technology and trade. They thought cutting off Earth would force humanity to beg for mercy. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Captain So Young was commanding a human research vessel near the edge of galactic space. When she received the exile message, she ordered her crew to begin Phase 1 of Project Exodus. Within hours, her ship was broadcasting signals to hidden bases throughout the sector. The aliens had made one critical mistake in their calculations. They had spent so much time looking down on humanity that they had never bothered to truly study them. They had never realized that humans were the most adaptable species in the galaxy. They had never understood that when humans were threatened, they didn't just fight. Back they evolved. All across the galaxy, human ships began to move. Not running away in fear, but moving with purpose and coordination. Every human colony had evacuation plans, but they also had something else. They had extraction plans. Plans to take everything valuable with them when they left. The Galactic Council had voted to exile humanity, thinking they were passing judgment on a weak species. They had no idea they had just awakened something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The species they thought they were punishing was about to become their biggest threat. As Yun Wu flew his small ship back toward Earth, he could see the first signs of humanity's response. Giant cargo ships were emerging from hidden bases carrying resources and technology that the aliens had never known existed. Defense platforms were powering up around human colonies armed with weapons that would shock the galactic military. The exile had begun, but it wasn't going to end the way the aliens expected. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when you cornered the most dangerous predators it had ever seen. 24 hours after the Galactic Council voted to exile humanity, Captain So Young stood on the bridge of her research ship, Meridian. The ship was floating in empty space near the edge of the galaxy, where no alien patrols ever came. Her crew was busy at their stations, but they were not doing normal research work. Today they were activating the biggest secret humanity had ever kept. Project Exodus had been in development for 53 years. It started when the first human diplomats realized that the alien species would never truly accept humans as equals. The older species saw humans as dangerous children who needed to be controlled. They made rules that humans had to follow, but they never asked humans what they thought about those rules. So while the aliens debated whether humans deserved to be part of galactic civilization, Earth had been preparing to leave on their own terms. Captain So Young pressed a series of buttons on her control panel. Across the galaxy hidden, signals began broadcasting from secret transmitters that had been placed on asteroids and dead planets. These signals woke up construction sites that had been sleeping for decades. On a frozen moon, orbiting a gas giant, thousands of human workers emerged from underground bunkers. They had been living there for years, pretending to be a small mining operation. In reality, they had been building the largest shipyard humanity had ever constructed. The aliens flying past this moon had seen only a few small buildings and some mining equipment. They had no idea that beneath the surface an entire fleet was being born. Chief Engineer Bo Ram had spent 15 years on this moon. She knew every bolt and wire in the ships they were building. These were not the simple vessels that humans used for trade with aliens. These were warships designed to fight in the deepest parts of space, where no rescue would ever come. The ships were built using technology that the aliens had never shared with humans, but humans had learned anyway. Every time a human worked on an alien ship or in an alien factory, they observed and remembered. When human students attended alien universities, they asked innocent questions that revealed important secrets. When human traders visited alien worlds, they noticed things that the aliens thought were too advanced for humans to understand. For 50 years, humans had been the galaxy's best students. They learned from every species they met. They combined alien technologies in ways that the original creators had never imagined. They improved on designs that alien engineers thought were already perfect. Dr. Jin Wu was in charge of the weapons development program. He worked from a research station hidden inside a nebula where alien sensors could not detect anything. The station looked like a small rock, floating in colorful gas clouds, but inside, it was filled with laboratories and testing facilities. The weapons they developed were not copies of alien technology. They were something completely new. Humans had studied how every alien species fought their wars. They learned the strengths and weaknesses of every type of alien ship and weapon. Then they designed weapons specifically to beat The plasma cannons could punch through alien shields that had never been broken. The missile systems could track alien ships that thought they were invisible. The armor plating could absorb energy weapons that had destroyed entire alien fleets. These ships were not just built to survive in space. They were built to hunt. Admiral Kyung-soo commanded the defense of Earth's solar system from a space station that orbited behind the moon. The aliens thought they knew about human defenses. They had seen the patrol ships and the orbital platforms that humans used to guard their trade routes, but they had never seen what was really protecting Earth. The solar system was the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. Massive weapons platforms were hidden in asteroid belts disguised as mining stations. Battle stations were built inside hollowed-out moons, their weapons pointed at every possible approach. Route defense satellites smaller than alien fighters but armed with weapons that could destroy cruisers were scattered throughout the outer planets. The aliens had always wondered why humans were so good at asteroid mining. They thought humans were just naturally good at digging rocks out of space. The truth was that humans had been turning every asteroid into either a weapons platform or a supply depot. Every mining operation was also a military base, waiting to be activated. Intelligence Officer Min Soo worked from an office that looked like any other government building on Earth. But his job was to coordinate the most extensive spy network in galactic history. For generations, humans had been infiltrating alien societies, not as conquerors, but as the most helpful people anyone had ever met. When alien governments needed problems solved, they hired humans. When alien companies needed efficient workers, they hired humans. When alien research facilities needed creative thinking, they hired humans. Humans had become so useful that most alien organizations could not function without them. But every human working in alien space was also gathering intelligence. They memorized security codes, observed military movements, and copied technical specifications. They learned which alien species were allies and which were enemies. They discovered trade routes and military bases that were supposed to be secret. The best part was that the aliens never suspected anything. Humans were so helpful and friendly that alien employers trusted them completely. They gave humans access to their most sensitive facilities. They shared their most important secrets. They treated humans like loyal servants who would never betray them. Commander Hai Jin was in charge of extracting all the human assets from alien space. This was not just about bringing people home. It was about bringing home everything valuable they had learned and everything useful they could carry. Human families living on alien worlds had been preparing for evacuation for years, but they had also been preparing to take critical resources with them. Every human scientist working in an alien laboratory had been copying research data. Every human engineer working on alien projects had been memorizing technical specifications. Every human trader had been mapping supply chains and resource locations. The aliens thought the evacuation would be slow and desperate. They expected humans to abandon most of their possessions and flee in panic. Instead, humans were conducting the most organized theft in galactic history. They were taking technology, equipment, resources, and information that the aliens had spent centuries developing. Captain Dong Hyun commanded a strike force that was about to demonstrate human military capabilities for the first time. His ships were hidden in a nebula near the Altarian home system, waiting for the signal to begin. Phase 2 of Project Exodus. The Altarians had been among the loudest voices calling for human exile. They had complained that humans were too aggressive and too unpredictable. They were about to learn what human aggression really looked like, when it was no longer restrained by galactic law. The strike force was not planning to destroy anything. They were planning something much more embarrassing. They were going to steal the Altarian government's emergency supply caches. The aliens kept these supplies hidden in secret locations for use during wars or disasters. They thought the locations were so secret that no enemy could ever find them, but humans had been working in Altarian government offices for decades. They knew where every supply cache was located. They knew the security codes and the patrol schedules. They knew exactly how to take everything without firing a single shot. All across the galaxy, similar operations were being prepared. Human agents were positioning themselves to steal resources from every major alien power simultaneously. The aliens would wake up one morning to discover that their strategic reserves had vanished overnight. This was what 50 years of preparation looked like. Every human who had ever smiled and nodded while aliens looked down on them had been gathering information. Every human who had ever been told they were too primitive to understand. Advanced technology had been proving the aliens wrong. Every human who had ever been treated like a second-class citizen had been planning for the day when humans would no longer need alien approval. The Galactic Council had voted to exile humanity because they thought humans were dangerous when they were trying to follow alien rules. They were about to discover how dangerous humans could be when they stopped trying to follow any rules at all. Project Exodus was ready. The galaxy was about to change forever. The Galactic Council had given humanity 30 cycles to leave alien space. They expected the withdrawal to take months, maybe years with humans, slowly packing their belongings and sadly flying away in small groups, begging for more time instead. The aliens witnessed something that shocked them more than any war they had ever seen. Within 72 hours, every single human presence in the galaxy had vanished completely. Commander Jin Ae stood on the bridge of the massive transport ship, New Seoul. As it prepared to leave Proxima Station, Proxima was the largest human settlement outside Earth space with over 2 million people living and working there. The aliens expected this evacuation to take at least 6 months. They thought humans would struggle to move so many people and their belongings. But Jin Ae was not just evacuating people, she was stealing an entire space station. The transport ships that arrived at Proxima were not ordinary evacuation vessels. They were industrial, haulers equipped with the most advanced salvage equipment humanity had ever built. While families packed their personal belongings, massive robotic arms were disassembling everything else. The fusion reactors that powered the station were carefully removed and loaded onto cargo ships. The manufacturing equipment that produced everything from food to starship parts was taken apart, piece by piece. The atmospheric processors that made the air breathable were stripped out and packed away. Even the hydroponic farms were dug up and transplanted into mobile growing units. When the last human ship departed, Proxima Station still existed, but it was just an empty shell. The aliens who came to inspect it found corridors with no lights, rooms with no equipment, and docking bays with no machinery. Everything that made the station valuable had been taken away. Dr. Subin coordinated what the aliens would later call the greatest theft of scientific knowledge in galactic history. She had spent 20 years working in alien research facilities as a harmless human scientist, always eager to learn and help with important projects. The aliens had shared their most advanced research with her because they thought humans were too primitive to truly understand it. They were wrong. When Dr. Subin received the evacuation order, she activated a network of human researchers scattered across hundreds of alien laboratories. These scientists had been copying research data for years, storing it on hidden devices and waiting for this moment. They took everything: technical specifications for faster-than-light drives, blueprints for weapons that could destroy planets, mathematical formulas that explained how to manipulate gravity and time. The crystalline hierarchy had been working on a project to create artificial black holes for 50 years. Their greatest scientists thought they were close to a breakthrough. They woke up one morning to discover that all their research data had been deleted and their lead researcher, Dr. Park Min-ho, had vanished along with all the prototype equipment. The Vegan Confederation had developed a new type of shield technology that could protect entire planets from attack. They had spent decades perfecting it, and were planning to use it to make their homeworld invincible. When they tried to activate the system, they found that the control computers had been wiped clean, and the human technicians who understood how it worked were gone. Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun commanded the military phase of the Exodus from his flagship, Indomitable. The ship looked like nothing the aliens had seen before. It was twice as large as the biggest alien battleship and covered in armor that seemed to absorb laser fire instead of reflecting it. The aliens had always wondered why human ships looked so different from everyone else's. They assumed it was because humans were too primitive to copy alien designs properly. The truth was that human ships were designed for a completely different type of warfare. Alien ships were built for fighting other aliens who followed the same rules and used similar tactics. Human ships were built for fighting enemies who might be stronger, faster, or more advanced. They were designed to survive. In situations where retreat was impossible and reinforcements would never come, Admiral Dong Hyun demonstrated this when his fleet struck the Altarian supply depot at Kepler Station. The Altarians had built this depot inside an asteroid field, thinking the dangerous rocks would protect it from attack. They were right about alien attackers, but they had never fought humans before. Human ships moved through the asteroid field like they were born there. Their smaller fighters dodged between rocks that would have crushed alien vessels. Their larger ships used the asteroids as cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. The Altarian defense fleet arrived to find their supply depot completely empty, and no sign of the attacker's captain. Yijin led the stealth operations that hit 12 different star systems simultaneously. Her squadron of invisible ships had been practicing these raids for years, but the aliens had never detected them. Human stealth technology was based on a simple principle. Instead of trying to hide from alien sensors, they made their ships look like something else. A human stealth ship might appear on alien sensors as a cargo hauler or a research vessel, or even a piece of space debris. The aliens would ignore it completely while it moved into position. By the time they realized what was happening, the ship would be gone with whatever it came to steal. The raids were perfectly coordinated. Each target was hit at exactly the same time by ships that had been waiting in position for weeks. The aliens lost strategic resources, rare minerals, advanced technology, and experimental weapons. They never even saw the attackers clearly. But the most shocking part of the Exodus was not what humanity took. It was what they left behind. Every human colony, every human business, every human organization in alien space had been secretly preparing for this day. They had been training alien employees to replace them, but only partially. The aliens who took over human jobs discovered that the humans had been doing far more work than anyone realized. The Centauri Mining Consortium discovered that their human supervisors had not just been managing the mining operations, they had been the only ones who truly understood how the complex extraction equipment worked. Without them, the mines could barely produce a tenth of their normal output. The Zephyrian Trade Authority found that their human administrators had been handling not just paperwork, but also all the complicated negotiations with other species. The aliens who replaced them could not figure out how to maintain the trade relationships that kept their economy running. Across the galaxy, alien governments were discovering that humans had not just been employees. They had been the invisible foundation that held everything together. When they vanished, entire industries collapsed. Dr. Chang Wu had been the head of agricultural development for the Vegan Confederation. The aliens thought he was just helping them grow better crops. They did not realize that he had redesigned their entire food production system. When he left, the aliens could not figure out how to feed their population engineer Park. So Young had been working on the Altarian Starship project. For 15 years, the aliens thought she was just one of many technicians working on the new designs. When she disappeared, they discovered that she had been the only one who understood how all the different systems worked together. The Exodus was not just humanity leaving alien space. It was humanity revealing how much the galaxy had been depending on them. The aliens had thought they were superior to humans, but they had been unknowingly relying on human intelligence and creativity to solve their most important problems as the last human ships departed alien territory. They left behind a galaxy that was suddenly much less capable than it had been the day before. The aliens had voted to exile humanity, thinking they were getting rid of a problem. Instead, they had created a crisis that would threaten the survival of their entire civilization. Admiral Si Wu watched the final phase of the Exodus from his command ship at the edge of human space. The alien governments were already sending desperate messages begging humans to come back and help fix the problems they had left behind. But humanity was done helping people who did not appreciate them. The galaxy would have to learn to survive without the species it had foolishly thrown away. The new order 2 years after the exile vote, the galaxy was completely different from what it had been before. The Galactic Council that had once ruled 47 species was now broken into small groups of desperate governments trying to survive. The collapse of their civilization. The species that had voted to throw humanity out of the galaxy were now begging to be allowed into human space. President Yunji stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Humanity's Hammer as it approached the ruins of the old Galactic Council station. The ship was 10 times larger than any vessel the aliens had ever built, and it carried enough firepower to destroy entire solar systems. But today, it was not coming to fight. It was coming to accept, surrender. The Terran Federation had grown beyond anything the aliens could have imagined. Human colonies now stretched across regions of space that alien explorers had never even visited. Earth's deep space stations were producing fleets of advanced starships faster than the old galactic military had ever built them. Humanity controlled more territory and resources than the rest of the galaxy combined. The first alien delegation to formally request admission to human space had been the crystalline hierarchy. They were the species that had been most vocal about human aggression during the exile trial. Now their representatives waited nervously in the docking bay of humanity's hammer, hoping that humans would be merciful to their former enemies. Admiral Chang Ho met the crystalline delegates in a conference room that was larger than their entire diplomatic vessel. The aliens looked tiny and fragile compared to the humans around them. Their crystal bodies that had once seemed impressive now appeared brittle and weak. "We come to offer our complete surrender," the lead delegate said in a voice that shook with fear. "Our civilization cannot survive without human knowledge and leadership. The hierarchy formally requests to join the Terran Federation." As a protected territory, Chang Ho listened without emotion. The crystalline hierarchy had controlled some of the richest star systems in the galaxy. They had armies of automated warships and technology that had made them one of the most powerful species in known space. Now they were offering it all to humanity in exchange for basic survival. The surrender was accepted, but on human terms. The hierarchy would become a client state of the Terran Federation. They would provide resources and territory to humanity in exchange for protection and access to human technology. Their military would be disbanded, and their government would report to human administrators. Commander Yu Ri was overseeing the establishment of New Terra, the first human megacity, built in what had once been alien space. The city was being constructed around a captured alien orbital station, but it was being completely redesigned using human engineering principles. The aliens who had built the original station had focused on beauty and tradition. The structure was elegant and artistic, but it was also inefficient and fragile. The human modifications were turning it into something that could house 10 million people and serve as the capital of an entire sector. Human terraforming technology was transforming dead worlds into garden planets faster than alien scientists had thought possible. The techniques that humans used were based on stolen alien knowledge, but improved with human innovation. Planets that would have taken alien terraformers centuries to make habitable were being completed in just a few years. The speed of human expansion was shocking, even to humanity's own leaders. Every month brought news of new colonies, new discoveries, and new technologies. Human exploration fleets were finding resources in territories that alien civilizations had missed completely. Captain Park Jun SEO was commanding the Terran survey fleet when they discovered the ruins of an ancient alien civilization in a distant galaxy. The ruins contained technology that was millions of years more advanced than anything the current galactic species possessed, but the humans who studied it were able to understand and adapt it within months. This discovery proved something, that the aliens had never wanted to admit. Humanity was not just another species trying to survive in a hostile galaxy. They were the inheritors of something greater. They had the ability to learn from and improve upon the achievements of any civilization they encountered. The final irony came when the remnants of the old Galactic Council formally requested an audience with President Yoon-ji. The same aliens who had voted to exile humanity now wanted to surrender their remaining territory and join the Terran Federation. The meeting took place on Luna Base in the same conference room where human diplomats had once planned their defense against alien accusations. Now the roles were completely reversed. The aliens sat nervously while human leaders decided their fate. The Zephyrian delegate who had led the campaign for human exile was now an old, broken creature. Her tentacles had lost their purple color, and her voice was barely a whisper. "We were wrong," she admitted. "We thought we were superior to humanity. We thought we could survive without you. We offer everything we have left in exchange for your protection." President Yoon-ji studied the alien representatives with cold eyes. These were the beings who had judged humanity unworthy of galactic civilization. They had voted to cut off Earth from all contact with the wider universe. They had expected humans to come crawling back within a few years, begging for mercy. Instead, humanity had become the dominant force in multiple galaxies, the Terran Federation-controlled technology that made alien achievements look primitive. Human fleets patrolled space lanes that alien ships could never have navigated. Human colonies were thriving on worlds that alien explorers had dismissed as uninhabitable. The surrender was accepted, but it came with conditions. The remaining alien governments would be dissolved and replaced with human administrators. All alien military forces would be disbanded and replaced with human peacekeepers. All alien technology would be shared freely with human scientists. Most importantly, all alien species would acknowledge humanity as the rightful rulers of galactic civilization. They would teach their children that the old ways had failed, and that human leadership was the only path to prosperity and peace. Fleet Admiral Park Min-Seo watched the ceremony from his flagship as the last alien battle fleets powered down their weapons and surrendered to human forces. The species that had once looked down on humanity as primitive and dangerous were now placing themselves under human protection. The transformation was complete. The galaxy that had rejected humanity no longer existed. In its place was a new order ruled by the species that the aliens had tried to exile. The Terran Federation stretched across countless star systems and governed hundreds of different species. But the most remarkable thing about humanity's victory was not its scope, but its completeness. The aliens had not just been defeated, they had been proven wrong about everything. They believed human aggression had created peace, human stubbornness had brought stability, human refusal to follow alien rules had created a better way of governing the galaxy. Dr. Lee Hai-Jin was studying the historical records of the old Galactic Council, trying to understand how the aliens had made such a catastrophic mistake. The answer was simple. The aliens had been so convinced of their own superiority that they had never bothered to truly understand humanity. They had seen human curiosity as dangerous ignorance. They had seen human adaptability as primitive chaos. They had seen human determination as mindless aggression. They had judged humanity by their own limitations and failed to recognize that humans were something entirely different. The exile had been intended as punishment, but it had become humanity's greatest gift. It had freed humans from the restrictions that alien law had placed on them. It had allowed humanity to develop their full potential without interference from species that feared change and progress. Now the galaxy was ruled by the most adaptable, most innovative, and most determined species it had ever produced. The aliens had tried to exile humanity from their small corner of space and had instead given humans the motivation to conquer everything. As President Yoon-ji signed the final surrender documents, she reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this moment. The species that had been judged too dangerous for galactic civilization had proven that judgment correct. But instead of being contained, they had become the civilization that would shape the galaxy's future. The exile was over, and humanity had won completely.